Ancient Greece is remembered as the birthplace of democracy and philosophy and theatre. It is the land of marble temples and perfect statues and heroic myths. People imagine wise men walking through sunlit streets while artists carve beauty into stone. But behind the greatness there was a stranger side that most documentaries only mention quickly. Ancient Greece was brilliant and also deeply weird. Its people lived with rituals that could feel shocking to us today. Some traditions were beautiful. Some were brutal. Some were so unusual that they sound like fiction. But they happened. They were real. They were part of everyday life. Today we travel into the hidden world of ancient Greece and uncover the weirdest traditions that actually happened. What you are about to hear is not fantasy. It is history. To understand Greek traditions, you must understand one important truth. The Greeks believed the world was filled with gods and spirits. Every river had a divine presence. Every storm had a personality. Every illness could be punishment. Every victory could be a blessing. Religion was not separate from life. It was life. The gods watched everything. The Greeks feared them and celebrated them and tried to negotiate with them through rituals. This belief created traditions that can feel strange to modern people. Because when you believe the universe is alive, you treat life like a sacred drama. Let us begin with Sparta, because Sparta was famous for discipline and war and toughness. Spartan marriage had one of the strangest beginnings in the ancient world. In many cases, the bride was taken in a ritual that looked like kidnapping. The groom would capture the bride with the help of friends. She would be brought to a house and prepared in a specific way. Her hair might be cut short. She might be dressed in clothing that looked masculine. Then she waited in darkness until the groom arrived. But the strangest part is what happened after marriage. Spartan men lived in military barracks until around age 30. That meant many married men could not live openly with their wives. They visited in secret at night like criminals. This was not romance. This was law. Spartans believed that secrecy increased desire and produced stronger children. Imagine building a family through stealth and fear and silence. That was normal in Sparta. Sparta also had another tradition that still shocks people. Spartan babies were examined by elders. If a baby was judged too weak or deformed, the child could be abandoned. This practice was tied to the Spartan obsession with strength and survival. The city believed it must create warriors or perish. It was cruel. It was cold. But in their minds, it was protection for the community. Sparta shows us how traditions can be shaped by fear and by the need to endure. Now let us travel to the Olympic Games. Most modern people see the Olympics as a symbol of peace and fair competition. The ancient Olympics were not gentle. They were intense and dangerous and filled with sacred meaning. The first strange tradition is simple and unforgettable. Athletes competed naked. Yes, they ran and wrestled and fought without clothes. This was not a joke and not shameful to them. It was a symbol of equality and a celebration of the human body. Nudity was seen as heroic. Clothing was considered unnecessary. But there was also a deeper idea. The Greeks believed the body was proof of divine order. A trained body was a kind of worship. Another strange tradition involved the athletic body itself. Greek athletes covered their bodies with oil before competing. After the event, they scraped off the mixture of oil and sweat and dust with a curved tool. Some people collected that scrapings because they believed it had healing power. Think about that. People gathered the sweat of champions and treated it like medicine. It sounds bizarre today, but it shows how much the Greeks believed strength contained sacred energy. Now let us enter the world of Dionysus. Dionysus was the god of wine and theatre and ecstasy and madness. His festivals were among the wildest events in Greek life. While many Greek rituals were controlled and formal Dionysian worship was about losing control. People drank and danced and sang and wore masks. The goal was to break the boundary between the human and the divine. During these rituals, some participants entered a trance state. They believed Dionysus was inside them. They believed they were freed from the ordinary rules of society. One of the most famous groups linked to Dionysus were the Maenads. They were women who in myth ran into the mountains in ecstatic frenzy. Ancient sources describe them tearing animals apart with their hands. Historians debate how literal some accounts were. But what matters is that Greek culture accepted the idea that madness could be sacred. In a civilization that produced logic and philosophy, there was also a space where madness was worship. This is one of the most powerful truths about ancient Greece. They knew the human mind had darkness and chaos. They did not only fear it, they honored it in ritual. Now let us talk about Greek funerals and the strange traditions surrounding death. Greeks believed the soul traveled to the underworld and faced real obstacles. One of the most famous customs was placing a coin in the mouth of the dead. This coin was payment for Charon, the ferryman of the dead. Without payment, the soul could not cross the river. It would wander the shore forever. This belief was so strong that families took it seriously. Proper burial was not only respect, it was protection. If you failed to bury someone correctly, their spirit could become restless and dangerous. Greek mourning traditions were also intense. Women often led the mourning. They cried loudly and tore their hair and sometimes scratched their faces. In many communities, these actions were not seen as weakness. They were seen as proof of love. Grief was a public performance. It reminded the living of mortality. It reminded the city that life could vanish at any moment. Now we come to a tradition that is disturbing and hard to forget. In some Greek cities during times of crisis such as plague or famine, there was a ritual known as the pharmakos. A person, often an outcast or criminal, was chosen as a scapegoat for the community. The person could be paraded through the city and beaten or humiliated. Then they were expelled from the city. In some versions, the scapegoat was killed. The idea was that the suffering of the community could be transferred onto one human being and removed. It is horrifying, yet it reveals something deeply human. When people feel powerless, they search for a way to control chaos. They look for someone to blame. They turn fear into ritual. The pharmakos tradition shows that ancient society struggled with the same darkness that exists in human behavior today. Ancient Greece also had secret religious rites that were protected by silence. The most famous were the Eleusinian mysteries. These were ceremonies dedicated to Demeter and Persephone. Initiates believed the ritual revealed deep truths about death and rebirth. The details were kept secret for centuries. People who revealed them could be punished severely. So what happened in the ceremonies? We cannot know completely. But we know that participants fasted and marched and witnessed sacred acts and experienced emotional transformation. Many left believing they had gained hope for life after death. Imagine a ritual so powerful that people guarded its secrets for generations. That is what the mysteries were. They were spiritual experiences that offered something beyond ordinary religion. They offered comfort and meaning. Now let us step into the healing temples of Asclepius. Asclepius was the god of medicine. Sick people traveled to his sanctuaries seeking cures. The strangest part of the healing process was what came next. Patients would sleep inside the temple in a practice called incubation. They believed the god would visit them in dreams and reveal the cure. Priests interpreted these dreams and offered treatments. Some sanctuaries kept sacred snakes that moved freely through the temple. These snakes were symbols of healing because they shed their skin and appeared reborn. Imagine lying in a sacred building sick and afraid, then feeling a snake glide across your body. To the Greeks, this was not horror. It was sacred contact. It was hope. It was medicine mixed with mystery. Now we enter one of the strangest and most dramatic Greek traditions. In some cities, there were festivals where people mocked leaders and insulted each other in public. This could happen during certain religious celebrations. It was a controlled release of tension, a moment when society allowed chaos to speak. People laughed at power. They laughed at pride. They used humor to cleanse the community. It was not simply entertainment. It was social therapy. The Greeks understood that laughter could be a weapon and a medicine at the same time. Now let us step back and look at ancient Greece as a whole. Why were these traditions so strange? Because the Greeks lived close to uncertainty. They lived with war and disease and natural disaster. They lived with gods who could be kind or cruel. They believed fate was real. They believed honor mattered more than comfort. Their traditions were ways of managing fear and building identity. Every ritual was a message. Every ceremony was a story. Even the weird traditions served a purpose. They created unity. They created courage. They created meaning. In the end, ancient Greece was not a perfect civilization. It was not a clean statue frozen in time. It was living and breathing and complicated. It created democracy and also excluded many people. It created philosophy and also practiced scapegoat rituals. It worshipped order and also celebrated madness. It admired beauty and also accepted violence as entertainment. This mix is what makes Greek history so powerful. It forces us to confront the full range of human nature. If you enjoyed this documentary journey into the weirdest traditions of ancient Greece that actually happened, then remember the greatest lesson. History is not only the story of kings and battles. It is the story of how ordinary people tried to survive a mysterious world. It is the story of rituals that carried fear and hope in the same breath. Ancient Greece still fascinates us because it shows us ourselves. We are different in technology and in time. But in emotion, we are not so different. We still fear death. We still seek meaning. We still build rituals. We still tell stories. And that is why the strange traditions of ancient Greece will always remain unforgettable.